Good morning, afternoon, or night, whatever time you were viewing this presentation. This is for those of you who are at home today on your hybrid school day. This is Module 4, the notes for Section 1. These notes are posted in your Google Classroom. You can work on them in your Google Classroom, or you can download them and print them off, whatever makes you happy. So let's get started going through the notes for Section 1. This is Carpentry, Module 4, Introduction to Construction Drawings, Plan View Drawings, and this is Part 1 because Section 1 is pretty long. Okay, so these are the types of lines that are used on construction drawings. It's a special language of lines, symbols, and abbreviations and notes that we use in construction. Basically, you are learning a whole new way to communicate in the world of construction. You'll notice that this should look familiar. You already have this in your packet of notes with all of the labels with the different lines. You will see these again. You'll see these on your trade term quiz. So make sure you're familiar with these. You're also going to see these in your performance task. On your performance task, you're going to have to identify these lines and read and understand different types of plans. And part of that is knowing what these lines are. So you will see your different object lines, your dimension lines in this. We've got break lines and just cutting plane lines, so make sure you are understanding those. Dimension lines right here, these are going to be your most common lines that you'll see. Then we have object lines right here. Object lines are going to show the main outline of a structure. Another important line is going to be a cutting plane line right here. This is a very important line that you will see on plans. And this indicates that an area has been cut away. It's also shown in a section view. Okay, so don't get a cutting plane line confused with a break line. All right, let's go to the next slide. I've highlighted object line, cutting plane line, and dimension line. In the past, those were terms that you would see on your module test. With a new test system, we don't know what you're going to see, but I would definitely be prepared to know those. Any of these could show up on the module test, and they all will show up on your trade terms quiz, so be familiar with those. Okay. Grab a sheet of scratch paper real quick and let's see if you can match these up. So just pause this video for a few moments and take a minute, just jot down what you think the answers are without looking. Just try it. No grade here. So pause the video, take a moment, and then when you're finished, unpause it and we'll check your work. Okay, at this point you should have written down your answers. So let's see if you got them right. Center line should have gone to B, which designates the center of an area or an object. Contour line was F, shows the changes in elevation. Cutting plane line indicates an area that's being cut away and shown in a section view. The hidden line was E. It indicates an outline that is invisible to an observer. A leader line is A. It connects a note or a dimension to a related part of the drawing. Leader line, I just said that one, sorry. Object line is G, shows the main outline of a structure. And last but not least, we have the phantom line, which indicates alternative positions of moving parts. So I hope you did well on those. You will see those again on a trade terms quiz. Next up we have architectural symbols with materials. So we have materials that are going to be shown on drawings in two different ways. You either have a plan view or an elevation section view. In the plan view, the material is going to be presented like you would be looking down on it. If it's an elevation view, the material is shown basically vertically, like you are facing it. Okay, you've seen this before. It's in your packet. I had you earlier label these different door types. I also had you label the window types just so that you could get familiar with what these symbols look like on a drawing or a plan. So these are all just the symbols for doors and windows that you may see either on an elevation or a plan view, either way. This one's in your textbook. I didn't put this one in your packet. Actually, I did put this one in your packet. I think it's just the bottom section of one. And I had you label, I remember I had you label door. Don't believe I had you label any of the other ones. But these are some window and door symbols. Whether they're in a concrete wall or a solid brick wall. They may be in brick veneer or even in wood stud walls. So just look at the way these are showing. It's showing you whether it's an exterior door or an interior door. It's showing you the door openings. It's showing you the way that they open up, whether they're opening to the inside or the outside. And then we have electrical symbols. Okay, you may wonder why is it important for a carpenter to know electrical symbols? Okay, well, first of all, they're going to indicate the location of where all these different outlets and switches and just different hardware pieces are located. But why do you need to know that when you're building? So just imagine you're building a wall. Well, if you build that wall and you do not place leave a spot for the outlets, for the hardware, for the switches, when the electrician comes in to wire those things up, and you haven't left the spot for that to put those items, you've really put that electrician in a bind. We have to cut out for wherever these boxes and switches and hardware are going to be located for that next tradesperson to come in and be able to do their job properly. So it's important on the plan to understand how the other tradesperson, how their trade is going to fit into our trade. Same thing with plumbing. We need to understand the plumbing fixtures. How do they fit in to what we are building, to the structure we're building? We don't want to block off any important fixtures, any important pipes, because we don't want that plumber to come in and not be able to do their part of the job. HVAC symbols. HVAC stands for heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. And that is a whole separate trade in itself. You can go to school just for HVAC. Sometimes you'll see an R thrown in there, HVARC or HVACR, heating, ventilation, air condition. I think the R goes on the end. It'll have refrigeration. So the locations and types of the different HVAC equipment, they'll be shown on the floor plans, the sections and the detail drawings, and they'll have symbols. It's going to show the direction and the movement of the hot and the cold air in that HVAC system. So here are some common HVAC symbols. So just take a second to look over those. Site plans, not plot plans, they show the position and the sizes of all relevant structures on the site. So you can even see terrain features. When I say terrain, I mean things like trees. You may see things such as a sidewalk listed. You've seen this particular diagram before. You had to label these. If you did not go back and label these in your packet, That means you didn't check your work because I went back and highlighted those for you to label. So make sure you do get that labeled in your packet, please. Here's a site plan legend. It's good for identifying the symbols that are used, especially symbols that aren't standard. They aren't the norm. So you can see those. Those are pretty easy to understand. I don't think I need to explain those symbols to you. Here are some structural steel shapes, and they've got their own symbols. So you can see the different types of beams, anything from what we typically hear called an I-beam, all the way down to, we'll hear this called angle iron, is the common term that we'll hear for that, to tubing, all the way down to just a steel plate. Here are some common welding symbols. So welding is a whole separate trade. However, we may be working on a structure where we're working with those tradespeople, and we need to understand their plans and how their plans fit into our plans. If it is highlighted, it's important. You need to know it. Symbols for welding and their method of use are defined in the American National Standard. You'll hear that called ANSI, A2.4.2012. So if you hear ANSI, that stands for American National Standard. The difference between these two, I need you to really pay attention here. We have weld symbol and we have welding symbol. Weld symbol is going to show you the type of weld to be performed, whereas welding symbol is basically giving you the instructions for welding. It's going to be made up as many as 8 different elements or 8 different symbols that are put together to give you the welding instructions. So weld is the noun that is telling us the type of weld we're going to perform. Welding, these are our instructions for welding. And then there are 3 main types of weld contour symbols: flush, concave, or convex. And the contour symbol is located next to the weld symbol. Abbreviations are all over our construction drawings. So there are a few things you need to just keep in mind when you're reading construction drawings. There are some common practices. So that means that they're standard, but they're not always going to be the norm. Abbreviations are typically capitalized. Periods are used when the abbreviations look like a whole word. Another important thing to note is that many abbreviations are similar, so sometimes you're just going to have to use a little bit of common sense. Okay, so that ends session 1, and we will pick up with part 2 in our next session.